shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom.
In fact, the Soviets had not picked up the extraterrestrial signal. But the US had no way of knowing that there was never an ET gap. From 1961, the US rushed to get men into space, never telling the astronauts that they would not be alone. Davis and Gregory's article was like a bomb going off inside the military. Within 2 days of its publication, the Pentagon gave an official public response.
Gentlemen, ladies,
the Department of Defense spokeswoman began by confirming the real story of what happened at Roswell, that a Project Mogul surveillance balloon had indeed picked up a signal of extraterrestrial origin. And then she said what all astronomers wanted to hear.
In light of the extraterrestrial signal received by civilian astronomers, and in line with its financial and practical involvement in the research which has followed that discovery, the Department of Defense has decided to make available all records of these earlier signals in anticipation that it may assist that research process. I will not be taking any questions at this time.
What's the real story, Mary?
Public interest in the extraterrestrial signal, which over the months had slipped into confusion and skepticism, was now reignited by the Pentagon controversy. Congressional hearings into the Roswell cover-up began 1 month later, drawing higher television ratings than the O.J. Simpson trial 8 years earlier. International outrage followed. Some members of the United Nations called for America's expulsion from the UN, on the grounds that it had been concealing vital information that was the property of humanity. Caught in the middle were American scientists, who concluded they would have to go it alone in their space research. While debate and recrimination raged, the scientists just wanted to get to work on the Roswell signal.
I felt that we needed that data immediately. And every astronomer felt exactly the same way.
Alexander and his colleagues had not been able to decode the infrared signal because they'd been mystified by its characteristics.
The signals we were detecting seemed to be coming in quite regularly, and in a binary code seemed to be transmitting the numerical value of pi, 3.14159, so on. This would go on for weeks on end and then abruptly stop. When they recurred, we noticed a slight variation in the signal, a minor phase shift in the timing of the signal, a fraction of a second. This perplexed us.
When tapes of the 1947 signal were finally handed to engineers Don Merrick and Greg Silverman, it was this timing shift that immediately caught their attention.
The first thing we looked at when we finally got the tapes was the timing shift in the transmission, the different lengths of time it was taking the signal to spell out pi. We realized the military scientists must have been looking at the same thing, because in their files we found all these strips of old chart recorder paper just kind of scotch taped together.
There, if you look at this, you can see that that this is in fact pi. Now this would continue, but this is the beginning. And they taped them together, and you can see that the pulses came in at different speeds. This one, for example, came in a little bit quicker than this one, which was slower.
It's actually a binary code. Slower, slower, faster, slower, faster, kind of like Morse code.
This was the breakthrough they had been hoping for, one that had eluded the military 50 years earlier. The timing shift was itself a code made up of 3 numbers. Soon they made another discovery, a connection between the 2 signals.
The moment that we found out about the infrared signal, we'd wondered if it wasn't some kind of beacon that was directing us to a more complex signal. And in fact, this is precisely what was intended.
You see, once we got the 3 numbers from the timing shift, we started playing around with them. We took the first number and we multiplied it by the frequency of the infrared signal. The product of those 2 numbers turned out to be the frequency of the radio signal. 50 years ago, the aliens told us where to look, but nobody read the message right.
Having found the meaning of the first number, the astronomers now went about deciphering the other two. Here they turned to the work of pioneering astronomer Frank Drake. Drake once calculated there could be thousands of civilizations in our galaxy capable of communicating with Earth. Back in 1974, he and Carl Sagan had written the only message ever sent out into space. That message is today recorded in stained glass at Drake's home in California. When Drake first began to think about communicating with extraterrestrial beings, he confronted the problem of how to write a message for someone who knows no human language. He concluded that the one language all advanced civilizations would understand is binary code, the language of ones and zeros used by computers. To test his theory, he created a message in binary code containing basic information about human civilization. Then he sent it to some of his colleagues. Every astronomer remembers Drake's experiment for one simple reason. No one could successfully decode it. They failed to realize the message was based on two prime numbers, 19 and 29. Once that was understood, the 551 characters in the message became clear.
What Frank Drake was hoping that his colleagues would realize was that with 29 rows of 19 characters each, the ones represented by black squares, the zeros represented by white squares, that what you get is a picture. And of course the picture needs further interpretation, but once you have a picture, you know that you're onto something.
Scientists knew the extraterrestrials had used binary code in their first message. They also knew that message still contained two mystery numbers. Was the first message telling us how to read the second? Using Drake's principle, the scientists arranged the 2001 signal into rows and columns, indicated by the two numbers from the earlier message. And what emerged was a picture, but one unlike anything they'd ever seen.
Their momentous discovery, astronomers finally revealed the face behind the signal from space.
Yeah, I hope they're friendly. See ya.
When finally the time came, the decoded signal was broadcast for all the world to see, attracting the largest audience for one television event ever. The picture the aliens had been sending was of themselves, a self-portrait. Yet this was not a picture of any kind of creature, at least not in the biological sense of the word. What all these strange symbols showed was the internal organization of a highly complex machine.
The thing I want to know is, who made the computers and what are they going to do to us? And, if they're out of computers and they're more advanced than we are, right? And so I'm wondering, we've got to hurry up. We've got to wake up. It's scary. I have kids. I have,
They seem like a lot more intelligent, a lot more immortal.
I don't see why they wouldn't come here after sort of letting themselves be known to us. And that makes me nervous. What else is there to this message?
Today, we're 2, maybe 3 generations away from designing truly intelligent machines. Now, it only stands to reason that if we can do this, other civilizations out there have already done it. Maybe 1 million, maybe 1 billion years ago. Now, if you create a truly intelligent machine, one of the first jobs you're going to give that machine is to design a more intelligent successor to itself, thus setting off a new sort of evolution, a machine evolution. And with a force like that in place, it's only a matter of time before good old flesh and blood starts to look rather beside the point.
As telescopes continued to track the signal, they confirmed its source was definitely on the move, though still over 100 trillion miles away. During their evolution, these machines must have abandoned their biological creators and become galactic explorers. The scientists were adamant the machines were too far away to be a threat. Yet sensational press reports were already creating alarm. And the question remained, what did these aliens want?
This question's always been waiting for us at the end of this vigil. What sort of motive can we ascribe to a civilization that would send out this sort of signal? If they had been a biological civilization like our own, we might well consider the possibility that this was an aggressive move, as very much our exploration has been. But as we know that this is a machine intelligence, for all of the philosophizing and all the reasoning that we do, we can't answer that question about what motivates this civilization. At least not now. The best science can do is say, we don't know.
Don't you sometimes regret getting the signal?
Not for a moment. Curiosity is hardwired into the human animal. If there are questions out there that need answers, we're programmed to look for those answers. It's what makes us human. It's what we're all about.
The world's curiosity had been unleashed, and for the first time, astronomers now had the resources to hear the true sound of the stars. On July the 6th, 2003, they reaped their reward, discovering another brand new signal. Days later came another, then more. In fact, over 20 different signals by the time this film was made. When we finally began really to listen to the galaxy, we found it teeming with life. It was as if for centuries we had been in our own little house with the doors and windows closed. And now, as we threw them open, we heard the chatter of voices all around us. It was a discovery so humbling that public anxiety and fear finally dissipated. The UN ended their bickering and agreed to send out a signal in reply to add our welcome to the voices of space. And that is why we are transmitting to you this signal, with its plea for friendship, its encyclopedia of our planet, and, by way of explanation, this simple film.
The film you have just seen has not happened. But could something like this really occur? Here's what the real-life experts think.
For decades, the American military has been searching the skies looking for signals from the Soviet Union. And in particular, they were interested in detecting Soviet nuclear explosions. Now, in 1947, they might well have been searching the skies using infrared to look for the glow of a nuclear explosion. And they might have detected by accident an infrared signal from another civilization, because we know that infrared is capable of transmitting information across the distances between stars.
Should we expect other civilizations to be sending us messages in the binary code? Well, it makes a lot of sense. When we code with the binary code, it makes messages stand out, makes them easily detectable. But more importantly, the binary code is the simplest arithmetic system. And so when you use it, the message is most easily decoded, most easily understood.
What the extraterrestrial civilization would do is try to start out with a beacon signal that would be easy to detect. And one way to do this would be to send out a simple signal like the number pi that any civilization in the universe would know about if they're smart enough to build radio transmitters or receivers. So I think the first thing that will happen is we'll detect this kind of a beacon. Then after that, what will probably happen is we'll find that there's another signal there, a more subtle signal that's harder to detect, but it contains much more complex information.
If we pick up a signal, is there any chance that the signal is coming not from a biological creature, but from machine intelligence, as portrayed in this film? I think that there is a possibility. In fact, I think it's a probability. We're biological, so we tend to assume that they will be too. But once you've developed machine intelligence, then those machines can improve themselves very rapidly. They're not bound by Darwinian evolution, after all. And machines can travel through space. It's not dangerous for them. They can spread out. They can use the resources they find everywhere. They can carry vast amounts of information. So, you know, if we find a signal, of course that signal will be coming from a